Imagine a peaceful neighborhood in the heart of Denver, Colorado. The kind of neighborhood where houses sit perfectly aligned, lawns are trimmed, and on warm evenings, the smell of grilling burgers fills the air. It's calm, serene, but to Emma Clark, it's also a place where life seems to happen just beyond her reach. She watches it all unfold from the porch of her family's modest home, a place that has become both her sanctuary and her prison. Emma Clark is 17 years old. For most teenagers, this is the age of first loves, parties, high school drama, and plans for college. But for Emma, life has been anything but normal. Diagnosed with stage 4 lung cancer at just 13, she spent her formative years in hospital rooms, undergoing treatments that left her exhausted, frail, and often unable to breathe on her own. That's where Phil comes in, her oxygen tank, her lifeline, a constant presence that she drags everywhere. Before we dive in, let us know where you're watching from today. If this story of love, sacrifice, resilience, and deep emotion resonates with you, don't forget to hit that subscribe button. Phil isn't just a machine to Emma. She's given it a name, as if doing so will make the reality of her illness more bearable. It helps her breathe, but it also reminds her of the ticking clock that no one can see, but that she feels every day. Every inhale, every exhale is a reminder that her life is different from the kids laughing and running down the street. There's a heaviness in her chest, not just from her illness but from the weight of knowing that her future is uncertain. Inside her home, things are both comforting and stifling. Her mother, Sarah Clark, is a loving but anxious woman, her every movement charged with a constant worry that something will go wrong. She hovers over Emma, making sure she eats, sleeps, takes her medication, checks Phil's oxygen levels, and prepares for every doctor's appointment. Sarah is doing her best, but there's a distance between them that neither of them knows how to cross. Emma sees her mother's love, but it's wrapped in fear, and sometimes it's too much to bear. Her father, Mark Clark, is quieter. He works long hours as a mechanic, coming home each evening to sit with Emma, asking her how her day was, telling her jokes that never quite land but still make her smile. He's the rock in the family, but there's a sadness in his eyes that he tries to hide. He watches sports with Emma on TV, pretends that things are normal, but the truth lingers between them like a shadow. Emma often retreats into her own world, finding solace in books. She devours them, sometimes finishing 2 or 3 in a week. Her favorite novel is Lost in the Moonlight, a tragic but unfinished story about a girl with cancer. The ending is abrupt, unresolved, leaving Emma frustrated every time she closes the book. She wants to know what happens to the protagonist. She wants closure. More than anything, she wants to know that someone else's story, someone like her, can have an ending that isn't just about death. But life, for Emma, feels like it's in a state of pause. She spends her days in a kind of limbo, not fully living, but not yet gone. Her thoughts are often dark, though she doesn't share them with anyone. She doesn't want to worry her parents any more than she already does. Instead, she writes in her journal. It's where she can be honest about her fears, her frustrations, and her longing for something more. One evening, as Emma sits on the porch with Phil humming softly beside her, she watches a group of kids her age piling into a car, laughing and shouting as they head off to a party. She wonders what it would be like to be one of them, to be free, carefree, with the world ahead of her. But that isn't her life. Her life is filled with hospital visits, breathing treatments, and the looming uncertainty of how much time she has left. But everything changes when her mother suggests attending the local cancer support group again. In the basement of a nearby church, every Wednesday, a small cancer support group gathers. Emma has been to the group before, but she stopped going a while back. The last time she went, it felt more depressing than helpful. The leader of the group, Patrick, is a cancer survivor himself, and though he means well, his chipper attitude often feels forced. He's always telling them to stay positive and fight hard, but Emma knows better than anyone that sometimes fighting isn't enough. Her best friend in the group is Julia, a fiery, sarcastic girl her age who's battling leukemia. Julia is blunt, sometimes too blunt, but Emma appreciates her honesty. They sit in the back during meetings, whispering snide remarks and rolling their eyes whenever Patrick launches into another pep talk. Julia is the only one who understands how much it sucks to be a teenager with cancer. That Wednesday, as Emma drags Phil into the meeting, she expects it to be just another boring session. But something feels different the moment she walks in. There's a new face in the circle, and it catches her attention immediately. Sitting in the middle of the room, with his legs stretched out casually in front of him, is a boy Emma has never seen before. He's tall, with a shock of messy dark brown hair and the kind of eyes that seem to see right through you. He's grinning as he talks to Patrick, and there's a lightness about him that seems completely at odds with the seriousness of the group. Emma quickly notices the prosthetic leg, brightly colored with graffiti-style artwork running up and down it. It's impossible to miss, and yet Jake doesn't seem to care that it's drawing attention. In fact, he seems to relish it. Jake introduces himself to the group with a joke. "Hi, I'm Jake Anderson. I lost my leg to cancer, but on the bright side, I'm halfway to being a superhero." The room erupts in laughter, including Emma, though she quickly stifles it, surprised at her own reaction. Patrick, ever the optimist, is thrilled by Jake's attitude. He immediately launches into a long-winded speech about the power of positivity, but Emma isn't listening. She's watching Jake, who is sitting there like he's at a party, not a cancer support group. His whole vibe is different from anyone else she's met in the cancer community. He isn't pretending that cancer hasn't affected him, but he's also not letting it define him. And that's something Emma hasn't seen before. When the meeting wraps up, Emma gathers her things, ready to head out with Julia, but she feels someone approach from behind. "So, how's life with Phil?" a voice asks, making her turn. It's Jake, standing there with that same grin, his eyes twinkling with mischief. He's pointing at her oxygen tank. Emma raises an eyebrow. "You're naming inanimate objects now?" Jake shrugs. "Makes them seem less scary." "So, what's the deal with Phil?" Emma is caught off guard. Most people don't talk to her about her illness directly, let alone joke about it. But there's something about Jake that makes it impossible to be offended. "He's my sidekick," she replies dryly. "Keeps me breathing. You know, the usual." Jake chuckles. "Well, it's good to meet you, Phil. And you too, Emma." Emma doesn't know it yet, but that moment marks the beginning of something that will change her life forever. After their initial conversation, Jake makes it a point to talk to Emma every week at the support group. He's always full of energy, making sarcastic remarks, poking fun at Patrick's overly optimistic speeches, and making Emma laugh in ways she hasn't in a long time. It's not long before they exchange numbers, and Jake starts texting her throughout the week. At first, Emma is cautious. She's spent so long keeping people at a distance, afraid that getting close to someone only means more pain in the end. But Jake has a way of breaking down her walls without even trying. His texts are constant. Random jokes, memes, pictures of his prosthetic leg dressed up in silly outfits. He's relentless in his mission to make her smile. One day, Jake texts her, "Adventure time. Be ready in 30 minutes. Emma stares at her phone, unsure how to respond. She's not used to spontaneous plans, and the idea of going anywhere unplanned makes her anxious. But before she can overthink it, Jake pulls up in his old beat-up truck, honking the horn. Emma opens the front door, Phil in tow, and stares at him from the porch. "You're insane, you know that?" Jake grins, leaning out of the driver's window. "You'll thank me later. Now get in." What follows are weeks of unplanned adventures. Jake has a way of turning ordinary things into extraordinary memories. They drive around the outskirts of Denver, exploring small towns, stopping at roadside diners, and sitting by lakes watching the sunset. They talk about everything: Jake's journey through losing his leg, Emma's fear of what lies ahead, and the unspoken reality of their ticking clocks. One afternoon, Jake takes Emma to a field filled with dandelions, their yellow heads swaying in the breeze. He sits down in the middle of the field, motioning for her to join him. "They're weeds," Emma says, wrinkling her nose. "They're beautiful," Jake counters, plucking one and holding it up to the sky. "Sometimes, you just have to look at things differently." Emma laughs, but there's something about the way Jake sees the world that resonates with her. He doesn't sugarcoat the fact that their lives are hard, but he also doesn't let it stop him from finding joy in the little things. It's infectious. As weeks turn into months, Emma and Jake's friendship deepens. Emma finds herself opening up to him in ways she hasn't with anyone else. She tells him about her journal, about how she writes to cope with the fear. Jake, in turn, shares his artwork, drawings and sketches he's done since his amputation. He paints on everything, from paper to his prosthetic leg. His artwork is bold, colorful, and full of life, just like him. They spend hours together, often doing nothing more than sitting in silence, content in each other's company. But as close as they become, there's always an underlying tension between them, an unspoken knowledge that their time is limited. Emma can feel it, hanging over them like a cloud, but she refuses to let it ruin what they have. One evening, Jake calls Emma with excitement in his voice. "There's a meteor shower tonight. Come with me." Emma is hesitant at first, but she agrees, knowing that every moment with Jake is precious. They drive out to an empty field, far away from the city lights, where the stars shine brighter than she's ever seen. They lay on the hood of Jake's truck, staring up at the sky. The meteors streak across the sky, one after another, and for a moment, everything feels perfect. Jake turns his head to look at her. "You ever wonder what's up there?" Emma smiles softly. "Sometimes." Jake's voice lowers, becoming more serious. "I don't know what's waiting for us on the other side, Emma. But I do know that right now he gestures between them, this is what matters." Emma feels her heart skip a beat. She's never let herself think about the possibility of falling for Jake, but in that moment, with the stars above them and the weight of their shared experience pressing down on her, it hits her like a wave. Jake leans in slowly, his lips brushing hers, and for the first time in a long time, Emma feels truly alive. Not long after that night, everything changes. Jake goes for a routine scan, and the news is devastating. His cancer has returned, and it's spreading rapidly. Emma is by his side when he gets the news, holding his hand as the doctor explains the treatment options. Jake listens quietly, but when the doctor leaves the room, he turns to Emma with a resigned smile. "I'm not doing it, Emma." Her heart pounds in her chest. "What do you mean?" "I'm not doing more treatment," he says softly. "I'm done." Emma's world spins. She can't believe what she's hearing. "But you can fight this." Jake shakes his head. "I don't want to spend what little time I have left in a hospital, hooked up to machines. I want to live, Emma. I want to live with you." Jake's decision to forego treatment devastates Emma, but she respects his choice. Together, they plan a living funeral, a celebration of Jake's life while he's still here to enjoy it. The day of the funeral is bittersweet. Jake's friends and family gather in his backyard, sharing stories and laughter, even as the knowledge of his impending death hangs over them. Emma gives a eulogy, her voice breaking as she talks about the way Jake changed her life, the way he taught her to see beauty in everything, even the weeds. Jake passes away in his sleep, just days after the funeral. Emma is there, holding his hand, whispering her love as he takes his last breath. The pain is unbearable, but in the midst of her grief, she feels a strange sense of peace. Jake lived the way he wanted, and now he's free from the pain that haunted him. In the months that follow, Emma is consumed by grief. She withdraws from the world, retreating into her journal, where she writes about Jake, about their love, and about the pain of losing him. But slowly, as she puts pen to paper, she begins to heal. Emma returns to the cancer support group, now a source of strength for others. She shares her story, helping others navigate their own grief, just as Jake helped her navigate hers. The story ends with Emma sitting on her porch, staring up at the stars, just as she did with Jake all those months ago. Her parents sit beside her, sharing memories, laughing and crying, but mostly laughing. And as the camera pulls back, Emma whispers to the night, "Some infinities are bigger than others."